Hi, Misha here, and it's been a little bit since I've done a Blackbox video. I said in the last one I was not going to talk about the election or that stuff anymore, that I'd kind of put down my final word, and I've stuck to that, because there's a time when you've said what you can say. Instead, kind of felt like reminiscing a bit. Feel free to join or not join. It was a stressful week for everyone. I think we can admit that. And today, I just slept in and relaxed and didn't want to get up because I was having probably one of the best, most optimistic dreams I've had in a long time. You know, people tell you about their dreams and you just kind of nod your head, and it's one of the most boring things in the world to hear about another person's dream. And that's because dreams, it's not about the events in them. That's immaterial. It's the emotion in a dream. And that's something that is extremely difficult to convey, except for the highest level of artist. So, I'll just say about my dream. I dreamed I was kind of back at a place that was very important to me and my friends when we were in high school and for the first year or two of college. Tell you about that, why not? Kind of reminisce over some of the good times in my life that I've had. I was born at the very end of what we would probably call Generation X, at a very different time. What's funny is comparing my childhood to that of my father's generation, it wasn't really that different. Yeah, his generation had 3 or 4 channels, and mine had 15 or 20, if you were lucky enough to have cable. But, phones were basically the same. The new hot thing in the 80s was just a cordless phone for the home. We thought that was hot shit. No. Obviously, video game systems came along. There was Atari and Nintendo. That had nominal effect on me for obvious reasons. I was born blind, and essentially I was adopted. That's the easy way to put it. I wasn't raised by my biological parents. We'll just leave it at that. And they did their best to give me as normal a childhood as possible. And it was, for the most part. I did go to just normal public school, and the first couple of years were pretty rocky. They were trying to find technology that I could use, and I was very beneficial. By the 80s, there were computer programs and things that technology was starting to get where it could help people with disabilities. I think most people would recognize Stephen Hawking for that. But, so I was taught Braille, but it was falling out of use because of computers. And it was a cost thing as well. Yeah, computers are expensive, but Braille can become very expensive itself. The paper, the machines, and it's very cumbersome. I had a good elementary school life after the first couple of years. Met some friends. In fact, a friend I made in 4th grade I still talk to on a very regular basis. And high school was, junior high started off well. But as things are wont to do, high school became rough for me, at least in the beginning. Here, where we live, you start to drive at 16. Now, before 16, I was pretty equal to my friends. I mean, I couldn't play football with them. I couldn't do video game stuff with them for the most part. But in other things, I could play toys, I could do things, I could talk with them, share books. But when friends started to drive, that was rough, guys. Because they could just cruise town and meet up, go places, do things. I could not. Now, to be fair, a lot of the people that knew me did their best to come by and pick me up or let me know, but sometimes things just happen impromptu. Sometimes things... Yeah, and sometimes they just forgot about me. And, you're talking about 16-year-olds. They're not exactly the most emotionally mature people. Long and the short of it is, beginning in 10th grade, I started to be left alone. Before that, people would go over to each other's houses and, have sleepovers and stuff. But that ceased to be kind of the case. And I found myself more and more alone. And the differences, the inequity was more apparent. Now, there was a new school in Arkansas at the time, the Arkansas School for Math and Science, that had just opened, and I applied and went in. Funnily enough, when I applied, of course, being a minor, I asked my parents to sign, and they did. And then I got my acceptance letter. And they said, well, you're not going. This is crazy. You're going to a boarding school. And I said, but you already signed. They go, no, we didn't. Yeah, you did. So, long story short, I went. But because it was a new school, they had never had anyone with any real disabilities there. They ended up having to borrow equipment from my old school, my own little hometown school. It didn't work out well. And when we were signing up, they promised, okay, if you go to the last 2 years, your junior and senior year here, you can have those count as college credit. Great. I mean, you can basically jumpstart and go to college 2 years early. Well, it turns out that was more of a hope than a reality with them. And I realized, look, I'm going to work my tail off here. It's not going to look any better on my college resume, except my grades will be lower because it was more work. And, it didn't seem logical, plus the stress of just not having adequate support and all that. So after a semester, I went back home. And that would be the first time in my life I really felt like I failed at something. But in the end, it actually was beneficial, grossly so. But at the time, I went back home depressed and dejected, and was even more isolated. People were driving, I had left, and teenagers being teenagers. But there was one silver lining. This newfangled thing called the internet. When I first applied for it was early 90s, actually. That was AOL, and I had to dial long distance, which, bone bills, long distance, so I didn't get on much. Around the mid-90s, though, there started to be a local internet provider in my hometown. And so you could dial in, and pretty much it was unlimited. And then my cousins told me I should download this program called ICQ. So I did, and I was like, well, what is it? Again, keep in mind the time frame, 96, 97 at this point. The concept of a messenger was incredibly new. And at first you just, friends. But then you realize there's people from all over the world on there. And it was a pretty small group because not many people had internet back then. And those that did, not many were on some type of messenger service. This was long before Facebook. This was long before even MySpace. Any of this stuff. This is long before social media. On the other hand, this was also soon to be the time when you could just get on the Napster and download any music you wanted and no one cared. Theoretically, you could have done the same with videos, but who had the bandwidth to do that, frankly? So people would download really low-res 5-second porn clips, and it would take them hours, because the good old days, of 14.4, later 28.8, and then later 56 baud modems. And I kind of crawled into a shell there a bit, with that being my only communication with the world. But, on the other hand, this did show me the world. People outside of Arkansas, outside of my hometown community. In a way, it expanded my world outside of the town that people's cars could only get them in. Things were rough through Christmas of that year, which would have been my junior year. And I'm trying to think exactly what the impetus was. I was having a hard time with friends. I had a couple, but I was a bit of a pariah. There had been rumors about me, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I guess it was around February, because I think it was still winter. I can't remember what the cause was, but I got a couple of my good friends to get a couple of their friends, and these are all people that I had grown to school with, so we knew each other well, but you know how the falling out, I think me going off had made some bad blood and bad spirit and things, and I'm not saying I was completely without fault, because I left, but I got maybe 6 people, maybe 8, to come, and we went out to my family's cabin in the Ozark Mountains. And spent the night, the weekend, and everyone had a blast. And this was no booze. This was just hanging out. They drove 4-wheelers around, and I rode on and stuff, and I had fun. I had companionship. Everyone was together, and this was still before cell phones, by the way. And so future cabin trips started to get planned. And it almost became, if not an every weekend thing, an every other weekend or at least once a month thing. And on top of that, of course, booze started to come in. I remember the first time we brought a bottle out. Now, this would not be the first time I drank, although it probably would have been the first time I had drank unsupervised completely. We had what we called the magic ditch. Me and a close trusted friend would go and get booze from someone who would go and get it for us. Again, underage. So we would go, and the first time we got was one of those giant gallon-sized jugs of Heaven Hell vodka, plus a few other things and some orange juice. And we were at the cabin, and we were playing movies. Everyone was sober because a couple of the girlfriends were out who were going to go home. Their parents were going to come out and get them because this cabin was almost an hour out of town. But, it was like, okay, they can stay till midnight and the parents come get them, or one parent would come get the girls. So we were there watching movies. I think we watched Predator. Anyway, I brought a TV and a VCR out. Did that. And the funny thing is, the most Christian-y girl, the most goody-goody girl that was there the whole evening while watching the movie, was on one of the beds with her boyfriend there, and my bag was sitting next to me, and she was kind of leaning on it, and in that bag was that giant bottle of vodka, and we cracked up like if only she knew. So when they left about midnight, we ripped that sucker open, and everyone got soused. And it was something else. First it started off with making screwdrivers, and then shots, and then we started drinking from the bottle. And I won't say names because, even 20 some odd years later, it's not worth saying. But one guy goes, I removed the pour cap, little regulator from the bottle. Then I was just upending it at that point, so I got a full throat full of disgusting cheap ass vodka, and it was great. And that was probably my last clear memory of the night, was upending this giant bottle of vodka. And someone found some giant old tub of God knows what chocolate icing in the cabin. They'd probably been there since the 80s. And started making finger paints with it. And next morning there was handprints everywhere, including on a couple of butts, and people were doing things. And it was fun. And it let me relax and be me and feel included. And it went on from there. Of course, we learned how to drink more responsibly. We always kept a couple of DDs, not for driving really, just, designated sober people around to make sure things didn't go too crazy. And they never did. They never did. People never got in fist fights. People never brought hard drugs out. Yes, there was marijuana, which is perfectly legal here in Arkansas these days, at least for medical use. But that was it. Weed and booze. It never went further than that. No one ever drove once they started. Typically, we'd actually lock the gate. And the gate itself was a third of a mile or so down the road. And, eventually parents had to have known. But on the other hand, they knew kids were going to do kids' things, but we were safe. We were literally locked in a piece of property. We weren't going to go raising hell. We all took care of each other. So since no one ever did anything wrong, no one ever got in trouble, no one ever broke anything, it was given tacit approval as long as we behaved like reasonably mature human beings. And we did. And many great memories and phrases and songs, the soundtrack of my teenage life was there. So kind of in the second half of my junior year, I found a modicum of acceptance and started to be included in the group. I started going to concerts with people, going on road trips for out-of-town ball games. And it started to turn around. And then that summer, I got my first guide dog, and I went away for over a month. And when I came back, this time, when I left and came back, people had missed me. The first thing we'd had a party just a couple of days before I left to throw me, a going away party and traveling up to New York. And that resulted probably one of the few times in my life that I probably legitimately had alcohol poisoning. Also, I woke up with a dachshund humping my leg all night because apparently he really liked me. And, apparently I met a girlfriend that night and don't even know it. But, so I went away, had a great time in New York getting my first guide dog, and came back, and people, hey, they missed me, and hey, what's going on? I tried to catch up while I was gone a bit via email, but, long-distance phones were still a thing. Cell phones really weren't quite a thing yet. And came back and was kind of given the skinny on a few things that had happened while I'd been gone for the second half of the summer, and was told so-and-so liked me, and if I did want to go out with her, this other guy did. The other guy actually turned out to be gay, which was a surprise to no one but himself. But, kind of ended up with the first real girlfriend in that whole deal going into my senior year. And the first half of my senior year was really good, and the cabin parties continued, and more fun continued, and we went from there. I could tell you all kinds of stories, but it doesn't really matter. That's my point, is that the dream brought back that time. I mean, life was not easy. Being a teenager in Arkansas was not easy when you're blind, or just anyone, but I had community, I had friendship. If people fell down, we picked them up. Like a friend, he went through a breakup and was furious, and we had his back, literally. Even when he started walking down the road to, walk about 100 miles, he thought, to go give her a piece of his mind. But, we took care of each other. Everyone went through things. There were events. And then I had some of my own. That Christmas, I had with a girlfriend, and we had a good Christmas together and whatnot. But then, and we had a Christmas party out at the cabin, and then after that, New Year's, she broke up with me for no appreciable reason. I mean, I know the reason now. It was basically because she wasn't ready for a relationship, but it doesn't really matter when you're 17, 18 years old. And that hit me hard. Because of course it did. I'm a human being. And the therapy was go out to the cabin and get blazed. It was more of a smoking party than a drinking party that weekend, that January. And we just got really high for a weekend. And it helped. And had a rebound fling or two. And winter turned back into spring. And we were getting ready to graduate. And I was salutatorian of my class. So I got to give a speech. And that was entertaining as well. So moving closer to graduation, I would say my senior year of high school, I definitely messed around. To be fair, I already had enough credits to graduate, so there was only a couple of classes I had to take, and the rest I just, took as for fun. And they only required, and they let seniors get out at 12 or 1. So, yeah, everyone just kind of cut out early. And that was great. I got to spend time with friends, went to a few concerts. We even had a senior trip. That was back when those things still happened. Went to Cancun, Mexico. And stories abound. Anyway. And then we got back, and some friends went to the same college I did. Some went elsewhere. And it was good that I had failed earlier, or at least perceived to fail, because it really felt like a second chance. And it also got me to kind of moderate my expectations. And having a year there to just more or less have fun, it meant when I went to college, I still like to have fun. But I got at least some of my partying done, sowed some of my wild oats, as people were saying back then. So I didn't mess around in college much. I kept my grades up. I never even came close to failing a class. And to be fair, though, I enjoyed studying. I was definitely a work hard, play hard type person. I would work throughout the week. But then when Friday and Saturday night came, it was on. But then Sunday night, it was back to catching up on any work. And then do it all over again. And I enjoyed both aspects of college. I, first year, lived in dorms without air conditioning. That was fun, because it was the hottest August on record, I think, at the time. And I kind of introduced myself to some of my floor mates they were all drinking beer, and I did my upend the bottle of vodka trick, and the fact that I was able to remain standing for the rest of the night and didn't embarrass myself, because I had a couple of years of learning how to moderate my drinking, know my limits, and just control myself. It helped a lot. It really did. And trips to the cabin continued, not as frequently, and there were new friends that people met at college, some old friends. By the way, I still had people that I knew from ASMS that would come to these college trips even when we were high school seniors. So it was, if not an international or national trip, it definitely drew people statewide. And I forget, towards the end of senior year, I think it might have been right after graduation, someone that hadn't really come to a party, and it was one of the bigger ones, came in, and he went inside the cabin where everyone was drinking. Then he comes out to the front porch, the opposite side, and he goes, "Well, I was in there and I found half of the honor roll taking shots, and well, here's the other half smoking joints out on the porch." And so that's what I mean. It was everyone was there. There were people who played sports. There were people who were academically well off. There were people who were just popular trendsetters. It was a very inclusive group, and I'm very proud that happened. Again, it was on my family's property, and the fact that it kept people from doing things that might have got them in trouble, and just got people to mingle, and it got pretty big. We also had the New Year's party for 99 to 2000 out there. That was a pretty big one. And went outside and turned off the breakers. Unfortunately, we were a little too wasted for it, so he only remembered to do it about 12:20 at night. But also, fortunately, everyone else was just as wasted, so they didn't realize it. So I think we celebrated the new millennium like 20 minutes late. Moving into college, like I said, it continued, and I brought some college friends out there. And went from there. And the whole time, I met people in the dorms, I met people there. And since I couldn't drive, I kind of used the internet, early versions of communication, namely ICQ, is my version to meet people from around the world. And that was very enlightening. And I probably used it for a few hookups as well. But that back then, in the late 90s, and even into the early 2000s, that was a bit taboo. Meeting someone from the internet was kind of considered a nerd thing, or at most a risky thing. The difference is, hey, I was hooking up and some people weren't, so I'll take what I can get no matter, how. And my sophomore year of college, ended up living with someone that I met. We'd actually had met online randomly when I was still in high school, and lost touch, and then kind of reconnected a bit when I went to college, and then met up the following New Year's Eve, New Year's. So unlike the previous New Year's that I'd spent at the cabin with everyone, the next New Year's was very much a one-on-one affair. But to be fair, that New Year's we had a huge snowstorm, so not many people were going anywhere to begin with, so there weren't a lot of parties, and it would have been safe to go to the cabin. And even if we'd been out there, chances are we probably would have been snowed in. And cabins are great, but with limited resources and lots of people, they quickly become not great. And so, yeah, my second year of college, I moved out. We had an apartment. We were together a couple of years and split apart. It was difficult, but it was, one of those things. A lot of high school and college relationships don't last. And it was around this time that the cabin trips started to end. Kind of the last times I went to the cabin on a regular basis were actually for work. I would get one or two classmates, even in grad school. We'd go out there and we would work on research papers. We'd bring a big old car trunk full of library books and things, and it was a good place because by this point cell phones are starting to come in, if not internet on them, at least phones, and the world was starting to become very distractive. So we would go out there where cell phones didn't work, and it was a good place to get papers done, bring out laptop computers. And then, after your papers were done, we'd crack open the bottles and do that. I never forget once a friend was out there, and it was just he and I. We were doing a 3-day weekend to get our papers done, and we started drinking, and then I'm going to go grab a shower. And so and he's like, I'm going to cook some chicken tenders. And it's in the shower, just, showering away, pretty buzzed. And he comes in the bathroom and goes, hey, chicken tenders are done. It's like, yeah, all right, cool. And then I guess he didn't think I heard him, so he pulls open the shower curtain and goes, chicken tenders are done. I'm like, thanks, dude. Please take them out of the bathroom, because he was holding the pan. So I'm guessing he was a little more inebriated than I was. Lots of good memories. Moving forward in grad school, like I said, they became more, R&R trips, or to go and get stuff done. And from there I went through college. The last couple of years of undergrad, I lived alone. I kind of figured that was the better thing. I finished up my studies and then started grad school. And I did that. I started going to Russia a few times, and talk about that maybe in another video, because there's plenty of memories from there, my first trip especially, that are entertaining. But looking back on it, I think the last time I was out at the cabin, at least for a weekend thing, was New Year's between 2008 2009, and kind of relates to my wife. Going all the way back to that ICQ thing that I'd had for 10 years at this point, that's how I met her. Although it wasn't like a hookup thing. It wasn't a dating thing. It was a random thing, and she just randomly found me, and we had talked, and then I had said I'd like to get back over there and work and find work and everything. And that's how it really started. In fact, it didn't, yeah, but it progressed from there, and we ended up, even though I was going to go work where she was and whatnot, we ended up living together, and I was planning on staying a good long while, at least a year, but then politics got in the way. Long story short, I had to come home that Christmas, forcibly separated from her. We had recently gotten engaged, and the only avenue left if we wanted to stay together was for her to come over here and us get married. It wasn't really a way for us to get married in Russia and me stay there because of how their laws were, at least at the time. It was hard. That was really hard in my life. Back when I had to come home from the SMS in the 90s, I felt very, very alone. When I broke up with a girlfriend, the first probably serious one I had after a couple of year relationship in college, that was rough too. I had good friends to get me through that. And really after grad school was another rough time. That's when my wife found me when we met. I didn't know what to do. I was kind of aimless because it was hard finding work. I learned some very cold water lessons. So I'd gone through some dark times in my life. But being separated forcibly from someone you love and someone you've recently begun to count on, that's hard. And to realize that you're half a world away, it's hard. So I came home and actually had to go live with my parents because obviously I didn't have an apartment anymore or a house. I hadn't been renting, didn't have a job to pay for it at any rate. So I moved back home and really, really felt down. So that New Year, I went to the place that probably had the most happy memories for me, was the cabin. Went out there with a couple of family members and very low-key affair. And talked to my wife, at that time just girlfriend, fiance at most, via computer, because we had limited internet there at the time. Wish each other Happy New Year's and did my best to find some solace. And went to the paperwork to get her over here, submitted it that January, and waited. And that was one of the most discouraging times in my life, the about 6-month gap there of waiting on that to come through, not knowing if it would come through, not knowing what to do now that school was over, not knowing what to work, what to do. I had no distractions, and friends had moved on, my world, and here I am living with parents after having been gone on my own for 10 years. It was humiliating and debasing and unplanned, and I think it's because of previous experiences in my life, previous times I had failed, or at least felt like I had failed, that I was able to get through it. If that had been my first real time to fail or have such a challenge, I don't know what I would have done, but I had to reflect back on those times. And another thing is, my previous relationships, that all ended, of course. And so this felt like that relationship might end as well. It is so difficult to keep in a long-distance relationship, even when you've known the person in real life and lived with them. In some ways, the fact that it didn't fail is remarkable to me a decade plus later. But just as good times end, bad times end too. That summer, June, July, she was approved to come over. And it was a touch-and-go thing. Actually, the interview agent didn't understand why she wanted to marry someone who was blind. I mean, that his words, not mine. He really was trying to sniff out one of those marriages for citizenship type things, which I don't blame him for. They happen. Just didn't happen to be the case in our instance. So it was approved, although it was a little bit touch and go. And then we made plans for her to come over, and that happened. And I've been looking for a job. DSB, which is a part of DHS that's supposed to help the blind, completely worthless organization. Absolutely worthless. And that's why I ended up doing the gun shop thing, because I had to do something. We ended up she came over that August. We were married in September. And since jobs weren't coming and we needed money, that's why I started the gun shop thing. I took whatever small, meager savings I had, a couple of $1,000s, maybe a little bit of loans here and there, and that's where we started. And things got better. A lot better. Not to say that the last nearly 12 years have been perfect. Nothing in life ever is. But, yeah. We moved where we're at now, coming up on 7 years ago. Because for the first 5 years of our marriage, we had to live in my hometown. Again, we didn't have the money. We were able to get our own house, which was good. But 7 years ago, we moved away. And again, life's thrown curveballs, but life's a lot easier to handle the difficulties than when you're not alone. And that was kind of why I had the nice dream. This week has been very stressful, and subconscious can really remind us of things. It reminded me of times when I got through stuff and other friends got through things because we were together, and it's nice to have a nice place you can go back to, first in reality, maybe later in life, just in your mind, to a time. And I don't whitewash my personal history. I remember the bad times, and I draw strength from them. I remember the good times, though, obviously, too. And when you're in bad times, it's good to remember both. It's good to remember good times and good people to give yourself strength. It's also good to remember bad times, to remember if you made it through that, you can make it through this. Over time, of course, I've grown older. My teens turned into 20s, and 20s turned into 30s, and now into 40s. And I don't regret the passage of time. I've had a good life. I've had an interesting life. There's many things I'd wished I'd been able to do. Some physically I can't because I am blind. Others, it's just the opportunity didn't. There's always that road not taken. But I can't regret my life. It's led me here, and I can imagine a far worse places to be. I'm in a marriage that has love and has had stability. I'm on good terms with my family. I have a business. The future of that's always, but that's owning any business. I don't care if you're in the restaurant business or what. Owning a business is always a little shaky. Then again, nothing is for sure. It was a nice dream. It was nice to be able to sleep in a bit today and indulge in a little bit of positive nostalgia. Here we are in the 2021. We've survived through 2020. Yeah, it's just numbers on a calendar, but it really did feel like it was a wholly inclusive year. We survived a lot. A lot of us have gone through things that seemed impossible to endure. but we've managed it. Will things be better? They can be. Will they be better forever? No. What goes up must come down, but also what goes down comes back up again. The important thing is to remember the journey in our lives, who we are, because it's our experiences, it's our choices, it's what defines us that matters. And I'm thankful. Well, I appreciate you hanging with me as I reminisce. I know that my personal memories and everything aren't really applicable to you, much like I said at the beginning, as far as the emotional content of dreams. However, hopefully you have your own personal memories, places, people, some maybe not with us anymore. And I think it's good to reflect back on such things, because these are the stories of our individual lives. These are what make us individuals, our individual experiences. And no matter what happens in life going forward, or if my life doesn't have much forward in it, it doesn't matter whether I live 40 more years, 4 years, or 4 months. That can't be taken away. What we've achieved, what we've been through, what we've seen. And I am very grateful that, and I've seen things. I'm very grateful to the friends that joined me out there at the cabin, and that I don't know what direction my life would have gone otherwise, but it allowed me to be social and be myself, and at the very least exposed me to a lot of music that became the soundtrack of my life. And I think it gave me the confidence to recover from failure and to succeed in college. And people like to paint university today as this bastion of liberalness and safe spaces and everything, and I don't know. I was there 20 years ago. But what I can say is, when I was there, that's not what it was. It was a place of learning, meeting new people, experiencing new things, heck, even just trying new food. And I greatly enjoyed it. I mean, as I've said in several videos, actually, I got back into firearms because of college, not in spite of college. In fact, now, at the college I went to back when, now carry on campus is allowed. And then, of course, traveling. I've been to places, not as many as I'd like to be, not as many as I'd like to have been, but, money is a factor there, opportunity. But it was very interesting to see Russia, to just leave the USA, really having not gone anywhere much else outside of North America before, and to go to a completely alien environment, to meet people, to manage. I didn't go with a tour group or anything. My first time, which was 2004? Yeah, I think 2004. I've been to a few other places since that time. Germany, Ireland, the UK, Ukraine. I'm grateful. Really I am. Really I am. And, I've learned, at least for me, myself, it's better to try and fail than to just not try. To go, oh, that's impossible, oh, that's too hard. That's not to say just because you overcome, you take that leap and go, I'm going to do it anyway, that you're going to succeed. You very likely won't if it's really monumentally difficult. But the benefit there is, while the failure hurts for weeks or months, in the future, 10, 20 years, that pain is gone of failing. But if you never took that opportunity, you look back and say, what if? You kick yourself for the rest of your life for not taking that chance. And if I had not taken chances, pushed myself, maybe done things that were frankly unwise, I could very well still be stuck in my little hometown, never having gone much of anywhere. I don't really communicate with any of the people that I knew back in high school anymore. No falling outs. Just, people move on. Life moves on. Many of us stayed in touch through college, even after college for a bit. But you know how it is. You go from seeing each other every week to every month to catching up once or twice a year. People get married. People have kids. It's bittersweet. For me, since I don't do Facebook, I don't really have that to catch up with. That's okay. I'd rather be in a room with people. And I hope that's something that young people today aren't missing out on. That human contact, that human context of everyone getting together and making fun. Not even having fun, but making it. You're bored on a weekend. And growing up, and like I've mentioned, using the internet from an early day, I recognize the validity of internet communications and what a wonderful thing it can be. But it's no substitute for human contact, for face-to-face engagement, especially when it comes to friends, family, loved ones. It's just not the same. And I think that's why this past year has been so difficult for lots of people. So difficult. This past Christmas was the first Christmas I had never spent with my family, at least some of my family. We were quarantined. My wife was quite sick with COVID. I seem to have had either mild or no symptoms. But like everything else, you pull through. It's what you do. What you do. I don't know what the future is. No one does. But we'll deal with whatever comes as it comes. And whatever happens. Yeah. Looking back, life was a hell of a ride. I don't know. And this might sound like a bit of a downer video. This is just me being reflective. I'm actually in a pretty optimistic mood. Probably in a happier mood than I have been in a few weeks, at any rate. But just sitting back this weekend, taking stock. Kind of thinking about where to go from here. Kind of have been feeling like there's time for a change in my life soon. In a positive way, not anything negative. But, sometimes a shake-up is good for us. It's good for the soul. Don't know. Just kind of wanted to share. That's the point of this personal channel. Needed to say some things this past week. As I wrote Jay on Wednesday evening, I said with the events of that day, I would need some time to kind of decompress and unpack what I was feeling, and still kind of working through things. And that tends to be how I am. I don't make snap decisions on that kind of stuff. I do tend to mull things over. Different strokes, right? We all have different things. But I am grateful for those people I've met in my life that helped me, and more importantly, that let me help them, right? Which is very rewarding. and I hope to meet more people in the future. And I guess right now I'm feeling like a lot of old friendships have kind of drifted away, and it would be nice to have some new ones. That's kind of how life does us. And that's nothing bad. It's just if we stayed in contact with all of our friends forever, we'd have a very, very busy social schedule. Never get anything done, right? But all those that are out there that I've known in the past, I sincerely hope they're doing well. Wish them well. And with that, I guess I'll get on with my day. But, I don't know. These are my reflections. Maybe have your own. Draw strength from surviving the bad times and reflect on how lucky a person is for the good times. And for me, at least, such a technique has helped me throughout life and probably will continue throughout the rest of it. Such is life. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon. Probably with more model videos, because I've been kind of on a British RAF kick lately. Next time.